Whispers among the stars. Across the sprawling expanse of the Vixillian galaxy, the stories were always the same. Whispered tales of a species called humans who once walked among the stars. Most considered them nothing more than myths. Fairy tales invented to frighten younglings or explain strange cosmic phenomena. Academics classified humans alongside other legendary creatures. The Star-Eaters of Andromeda, the Void Walkers of Centauri, and the Planet Shapers of old. Professor Zalvex, a Novalian scholar specializing in extinct civilizations, had heard these stories all his life. His species, tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, prided themselves on their rational approach to the universe. Yet something about the human legends had always fascinated him. "Professor, your next appointment has arrived," chirped his assistant, a small hovering drone named Pip. Zalvex sighed, his outer eyelids closing briefly in resignation. "Send them in." The door to his cramped office in the Grand University of Nexus Prime slid open with a hydraulic hiss. A Trillian diplomat entered, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the artificial light. "Professor," she began without preamble, "the High Council requests your presence at tomorrow's emergency session." Zalvex's upper eyes widened. The High Council? What could they possibly want with an academic specializing in myths? "It concerns the anomalies in the Outer Rim. They've evolved." The anomalies. For 3 cycles now, strange energy signatures had been detected throughout the galaxy. Unexplainable pulses that defied known physics. The Galactic Council, the governing body comprising representatives from the 12 dominant species, had dismissed them as natural phenomena. But Zalvex had his suspicions. "What kind of evolution?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The Trillian's crystalline face remained impassive. "They've started broadcasting. In a language no translation matrix can decipher." Zalvex felt a chill run through his 4 hearts. "Show me." The diplomat projected a hologram from her wrist device. A series of symbols appeared, pulsing rhythmically. With trembling hands, Zalvex opened his desk drawer and retrieved an ancient data crystal, one of his most prized possessions. He inserted it into his terminal and pulled up a file he'd discovered decades ago in the ruins of an abandoned outpost on the edge of known space. The symbols matched. "By the void," he whispered. "It's them." The Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime bustled with nervous energy. Representatives from all 12 major species sat in concentric rings around a central holographic display. The chamber, usually a place of measured debate and political maneuvering, now hummed with undisguised fear. High Councilor Drav, a massive Krondon with leathery gray skin and 6 arms, called for order. "Esteemed colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. For those who haven't yet been briefed, 37 anomalies have now been detected throughout our territory, each emitting the same signal on repeating cycles." The hologram at the center of the chamber showed a map of the galaxy with blinking red dots scattered across it. "Our military advises these could be probes from an unknown civilization," continued Drav, "or possibly weapons of some kind." From his seat in the observation ring, Zalvex listened with mounting frustration. They still didn't understand. "If I may, High Councilor," called a Mirian representative, her fur rippling with anxiety. "My people's long-range sensors have detected something else. A massive object approaching from beyond the galactic barrier." The chamber erupted into alarmed chatter. "Show us," demanded Drav. The hologram shifted to display a grainy image. Something enormous was moving through the void. Its shape was unmistakably artificial, a vessel of some kind, but larger than any known spacecraft. Its design was unlike anything in their records. Angular, with massive protruding structures that might be weapons or energy collectors. "That's no probe," whispered someone nearby. Zalvex couldn't contain himself any longer. He stood, drawing the attention of those around him. "High Councilor, with your permission, I believe I can explain what we're seeing." Drav's 6 eyes fixed on him. "Professor Zalvex, I presume. The Council recognizes you." Moving to the central speaking platform, Zalvex connected his personal device to the chamber systems. The hologram shifted again, displaying ancient text and diagrams. What you're seeing comes from records I've spent my life collecting. Records most believe are mere myth. He paused, knowing his next words would change everything. We are witnessing the return of humanity. A ripple of disbelief spread through the chamber. Humans? Scoffed a Ventari diplomat. Next you'll tell us Star Eaters are real. Zalvex remained calm. The anomalies match exactly with communication protocols described in these ancient records. And this vessel? He gestured to the image of the massive ship. Bears all the hallmarks of what humans called a dreadnought, a warship. High Counselor Drav leaned forward. Professor, even if these humans were once real, all records indicate they vanished over 30,000 cycles ago. No species simply disappears and then returns millennia later. Unless they never left, Zalvex replied quietly. These records suggest humans didn't go extinct. They withdrew, deliberately removed themselves from galactic affairs. And now something has triggered their return. Before Drav could respond, an aide rushed onto the platform, whispering urgently in his ear. The High Counselor's expression darkened. We've just received reports. 3 more of these vessels have been detected, all heading toward populated systems. In the observatory of Research Station Epsilon 9, orbiting the gas giant Helios IV, junior researcher Talia watched the stars with growing apprehension. As a Solarian, a species of empaths evolved to navigate the emotional currents of diplomatic relations, she sensed something no instruments could detect, a presence, vast and ancient, stirring from long dormancy. Her supervisor, Chief Researcher Morden, entered the observatory, his cybernetic implants glinting in the dim light. Any change? Talia shook her head. The object continues on its trajectory, 18 hours until it reaches scanning range. The object, officially designated Anomaly Prime, but unofficially called the Visitor by station staff, had been detected 3 days earlier, emerging from the void between galaxies. Its speed defied current propulsion theory. Its mass readings fluctuated impossibly, and it was heading directly for them. The Council has finally authorized first contact protocols, Morden said, his voice betraying his skepticism. Though what good those will do against something that size? Talia felt a sudden shift in the emotional atmosphere, a focused attention where before there had been only the background hum of sleeping minds. It's scanning us, she whispered. Morden frowned. How could you possibly know that? Our sensors show. The station's alarms blared to life, cutting him off. On every screen, the same message appeared in blinking red letters. Unknown energy signet URE DT CTED. CKNINGDN Piro Juries. Impossible. Breathed Morden. It's still 14 million kilometers out. Talia closed her eyes, extending her empathic senses. What she felt made her gasp. There's consciousness in it, not like ours, but aware. The scanning beam intensified. Station systems flickered, databases opened and closed of their own accord, and for 3 terrifying minutes, Epsilon 9 was no longer under its crew's control. Then, as suddenly as it began, the scan ended. Silence fell. In that silence, a new message appeared on every screen. ID intake CONFIR MED. Research Station. Non-combatant. Status. Preserved. Tuiro Tokeko Awakening. Co-continues. Humanity or members. The emergency session of the High Council had been ongoing for 6 straight hours when the transmission came. It bypassed all security protocols, appearing simultaneously on every communication device in the chamber. A face filled the screens. Humanoid, but unlike any known species. No scales, fur, or exoskeleton. Just smooth skin, 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Features that matched the descriptions in ancient texts. A human. Greetings, species of the Vixillian Galaxy. I am Admiral Helena Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. After 30,000 years of observation, we have determined that direct intervention is now necessary. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried an unmistakable weight of authority. For those who have forgotten, or never knew, humanity once walked among you. We were explorers, traders, and when necessary, warriors. We withdrew not from extinction, but from choice. To watch, to wait, to see if the galaxy could find balance without our presence. Images began flashing alongside the human's face, records of ancient conflicts, civilizations rising and falling, atrocities committed and justice denied. The experiment has failed. The cycle of domination continues. The strong still prey upon the weak. Therefore, we return, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Zolvex watched in awe as the human admiral continued. This confirmed everything he had suspected, but could never prove. Humans hadn't disappeared. They had been watching all along, studying the galaxy's development like scientists observing an experiment. Our dreadnoughts now approach 12 systems within your territory. They come not to destroy, but to demonstrate our resolve. Resistance would be unfortunate. The screens flickered, showing real-time footage of the massive vessels entering different star systems. Each dreadnought dwarfed the largest Galactic Council warship by orders of magnitude. Tomorrow, at what you measure as Galactic Standard Time 1200 hours, we will broadcast our terms. Until then, know this: the age of unchecked exploitation is over. Humanity has awakened from its long watch. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. In that silence, Zolvex felt something he hadn't expected: hope. The legends he'd studied all his life were real. Humans existed, and perhaps, just perhaps, their return might bring the change this troubled galaxy so desperately needed. They're real, he whispered to himself. They've always been real. Around him, the council erupted into panic, but Zolvex remained calm, his 4 eyes fixed on the empty screen where, moments ago, he had seen the face of a legend come to life. The whispers among the stars had become a shout, and the galaxy would never be the same. The awakening of Earth. The 12 hours following humanity's announcement were the most chaotic in the Galactic Council's 5,000-year history. Military vessels scrambled to defensive positions. Civilian populations panicked. The markets crashed as trade routes shut down. And through it all, the human dreadnoughts maintained their positions, silent, imposing sentinels that seemed to watch with patient indifference. In his temporary quarters adjacent to the council chamber, Professor Zolvex hadn't slept. Instead, he'd spent the night poring over his collection of ancient texts, searching for any clue about humanity's true intentions. His research assistant, a young Novalian named Cree, worked alongside him, organizing data and running comparisons. "Professor," said Cree, looking up from her terminal, "I found something odd in the military archives." Zolvex moved to her side. "What is it?" According to these records, approximately 5,000 years ago, right around when the Galactic Council was formed, there was a classified initiative called Operation Memory Wipe. It appears to have been a coordinated effort to erase all evidence of humanity from official records. Zolvex's 4 eyes widened. The founding species deliberately removed humans from history. Why? Before Cree could answer, Pip, his drone assistant, chimed an alert. "Professor, the High Council requests your immediate presence. The human transmission is about to begin." Zolvex gathered his notes. "Keep digging, Cree. This could be important." As he hurried toward the council chamber, a disturbing thought formed in his mind. What if the galaxy's dominant species had good reason to fear humanity's return? The Grand Council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from all 12 major species were present, along with military advisors, intelligence officers, and scientific experts. High Counselor Drav sat at the center, his 6 arms arranged in a posture that, in Krondon body language, signified grim determination. "Professor," Drav called as Zalvex entered, "join us at the primary ring. Your expertise may be needed." Taking his place among the Council's inner circle, Zalvex felt distinctly out of place. He was a scholar, not a diplomat or strategist. Yet here he sat, about to witness history unfold. At precisely 1200 hours, every screen in the chamber activated simultaneously. The face of Admiral Helena Chen appeared, her expression composed and resolute. "Representatives of the Galactic Council, I thank you for your attention. As promised, I will now outline humanity's terms." The chamber fell into tense silence. For 30,000 years, Earth has watched this galaxy's development from afar. We withdrew not from weakness, but to allow younger species the opportunity to grow without our influence. This was not an easy decision. It required patience beyond measure. Images appeared beside her, planets in various states of development, primitive spacecraft taking their first journeys beyond their home systems, young civilizations making first contact with one another. We observed thousands of species rise, hundreds achieve spaceflight, and dozens establish interstellar empires. We watched wars, alliances, genocides, and peace treaties. We studied your technologies, your cultures, your philosophies. Her expression hardened slightly. "And we witnessed the formation of your Galactic Council, built upon a foundation of lies." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Zalvex leaned forward, his suspicions confirmed. 5,000 years ago, the 5 species that would become your founding members encountered evidence of humanity's existence. Rather than acknowledge a civilization far beyond their understanding, they chose to erase us from history. Operation Memory Wipe, as you called it, was conceived to ensure no one would ever look to the stars and wonder about the humans. High Counselor Drav's upper arms twitched, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. "That's preposterous," he declared. "No such operation ever." "We have the records, Counselor," Chen interrupted smoothly, "including the original Council directive authorizing the systematic destruction of all evidence of human civilization. We preserved them while you were busy destroying them." On screens around the chamber, ancient documents appeared, official orders signed by representatives of the founding species. Zalvex recognized the authentication markers. They were genuine. "But why?" asked a Solarian representative, her empathic tendrils quivering with confusion. "Why erase knowledge of your existence?" Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. "Fear, Ambassador Solia. Fear of what we represented." New images appeared, massive structures floating in space, planets with environments engineered from barren rock, energy sources that made current technology look primitive by comparison. Humanity had achieved what your ancestors could only dream of. We had conquered disease, ended resource scarcity, and expanded beyond our solar system. We had developed technologies that could terraform dead worlds into paradise or turn paradise into ash. Your ancestors feared that younger species would worship us as gods or despair at ever matching our achievements. Zalvex felt a chill run through him. The same fear that had driven those ancient leaders to erase humanity from history now permeated the chamber, the fear of being rendered obsolete. "So what do you want now?" demanded High Counselor Drav, his voice tight with suppressed anger. "To replace the Council. To rule us all with your superior technology." Admiral Chen smiled, a small, almost sad expression. "No, Counselor. Our terms are much simpler. Truth, justice, balance." She raised one hand, and the screen shifted to display a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with areas highlighted in different colors. "From this moment forward, humanity will establish protected zones throughout the galaxy where developing species can evolve without interference. We will create neutral territories where all may trade and interact freely without fear of exploitation. And we will maintain observer stations to ensure compliance with the new Galactic Charter." The Council chamber erupted into objections. Representatives shouted over one another, demanding explanations, making threats, pleading for compromise. Through it all, Admiral Chen waited patiently, her image unwavering on the screens. When the noise subsided, she continued, "This is not a negotiation. For 30,000 years, we gave you the freedom to find your own path. You chose domination, exploitation, and willful ignorance. Now, we choose to intervene. And if we refuse?" asked Drav, his voice dangerously quiet. For the first time, Chen's composure slipped slightly, revealing something harder beneath. "Then we demonstrate why your ancestors feared us enough to erase our very existence from history." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. The dreadnoughts positioned throughout Council space suddenly seemed less like sentinels and more like weapons poised to strike. "You have 24 hours to signal your acceptance. After that, we proceed regardless." The transmission ended. Chaos consumed the council chamber. Representatives argued vehemently. Military advisors conferred in hushed tones. And through it all, High Counselor Drav sat motionless, as if turned to stone. Zolvex slipped away unnoticed, returning to his temporary quarters where Kree waited with wide eyes. "Professor, did you see it? Everything they said about Operation Memory Wipe, it matches what I found." Zolvex nodded grimly. "The Council lied. For 5,000 years, they've known humans were real. But there's more," Kree continued, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I know why the humans have returned now, after all this time." She projected a series of charts showing resource depletion across the galaxy, extinction rates of non-spacefaring species, and atmospheric degradation on thousands of worlds. The Council's policies have accelerated environmental collapse on countless planets. They've allowed corporations to strip mine worlds with native life. They've stood by while dozens of pre-spaceflight civilizations were exploited or exterminated. Zolvex stared at the data, horror dawning. They're not just returning to reclaim their place. They're returning to save the galaxy from us. "Professor," began Kree, but was interrupted by a sharp chime from Zolvex's communication device. "Professor Zolvex," came a voice he didn't recognize. "I am Lieutenant Commander Ishida of the Earth Vessel Vigilant. Admiral Chen requests your presence for a private discussion. A transport will arrive at your location in 30 minutes. Zolvex stared at the device in shock. "They're monitoring us. They know who I am." "What will you do?" asked Kree, her 4 eyes wide with fear. After a moment's consideration, Zolvex straightened his academic robes. "What I've always done. Seek knowledge." The human transport vessel was unlike anything Zolvex had ever seen, sleek, silent, and seemingly able to bypass all Council security measures without effort. Within minutes of boarding, he found himself approaching one of the massive dreadnoughts. Up close, the scale was breathtaking. The vessel stretched for kilometers, its dark hull adorned with strange geometrical patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. It wasn't merely a warship, it was a statement written in metal and energy, a declaration of technological superiority so vast it defied comprehension. The transport docked with the dreadnought, and Zolvex was escorted through pristine corridors by silent robotic guardians. Eventually, they reached what appeared to be a botanical garden enclosed within a transparent dome. Stars wheeled overhead, and among carefully tended earth plants stood Admiral Helena Chen. In person, she seemed both more and less intimidating than her transmitted image, smaller in stature than most Council species, yet carrying herself with unmistakable authority. Her uniform was simple but impeccable, bearing symbols Zolvex recognized from ancient texts. "Professor Zolvex," she greeted him, gesturing toward a seating area. "Thank you for accepting my invitation." "I'm not sure I had much choice," he replied, cautiously taking a seat designed for human physiology. Chen smiled slightly. "We've been watching your career with interest. Few have come as close to the truth as you have, despite the Council's best efforts to bury it. Why me? Why now? Because the Council stands at a crossroads. They can accept our terms designed to protect the galaxy's future, or they can resist and face consequences they cannot imagine. Chen's eyes, so alien yet so expressive, fixed on him. They trust you. They'll listen to you. Zalvex's upper eyes narrowed. You want me to convince them to surrender. I want you to help them understand what's truly at stake. She produced a small crystal device and handed it to him. This contains the complete history of humanity's withdrawal, including our observations of the Council's activities over millennia. It also contains our plans for the future, not conquest, but coexistence. Zalvex accepted the device cautiously. And if I find your plans unacceptable, then return to the Council and tell them so. She gestured around the garden. We are not monsters, Professor. We are guardians. We withdrew not from fear, but from wisdom, the understanding that our presence might stifle the natural development of younger species. Then why return now? Admiral Chen's expression darkened. Because we miscalculated. We believed that given enough time, intelligence would naturally tend toward compassion. Instead, we watched as power concentrated among the few, as worlds were stripped bare for profit, as species were driven to extinction through indifference. She stood, moving to the transparent dome. Beyond it, Zalvex could see the curve of Nexus Prime, and in the distance, the lights of council ships maintaining their futile vigil. 30,000 years ago, humanity faced a choice after achieving technologies you still consider theoretical. We could expand endlessly, consuming everything in our path, or we could become stewards, preserving the miracle of life throughout the cosmos. And you chose stewardship, Zalvex said quietly. Chen nodded. We withdrew to observe, hoping others would make the same choice when they reached similar crossroads. The Galactic Council has had 5,000 years to demonstrate their commitment to protection rather than exploitation. They have failed that test. 23 hours after humanity's ultimatum, the Galactic Council convened for its final vote. The chamber was subdued, the earlier chaos replaced by grim resignation. Zalvex stood at the center, having spent hours presenting the information from Admiral Chen's crystal. The truth had been difficult for many to accept, but the evidence was irrefutable. High Counselor Drav, looking older than Zalvex had ever seen him, called for order. We have heard Professor Zalvex's analysis of the human proposal. We have reviewed their evidence regarding our founder's deception. We have 1 hour remaining to signal our acceptance or rejection of their terms. The chamber remained silent, a silence heavy with the weight of 5,000 years of lies and the uncertainty of what would follow. Before we vote, Drav continued, I wish to address a question many have asked. Could we resist? Could our combined military force stand against these human dreadnoughts? He gestured to the chief military advisor, a battle-scarred Vorton whose metallic exoskeleton bore the marks of a dozen campaigns. Tell them what you told the High Council, Drav instructed. The Vorton's voice was a harsh rasp. Based on our analysis of the human vessel's capabilities, resistance would be pointless. Their technology exceeds our most advanced systems by orders of magnitude. A direct confrontation would result in total defeat within hours, if not minutes. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, but they were muted, resigned. Then we have no choice, said a Mirian representative, her fur lying flat against her body in defeat. There is always choice, countered Zalvex. But in this case, I believe accepting humanity's terms is not merely our only viable option. It may be our best possible future. He activated a holographic display showing projections based on the data Chen had provided. A galaxy where developing species were protected, where resources were managed sustainably, where power was balanced rather than concentrated. What humanity offers isn't subjugation, it's partnership. A chance to build something better than what we've created on our own. High Counselor Drav's 6 eyes studied Zalvex carefully. You believe them. I do, replied Zalvex simply. They could have conquered us millennia ago. Instead, they withdrew to give us a chance to find our own way. Now they return not as conquerors, but as teachers. After a moment, Drav nodded. Then let us vote. Those in favor of accepting humanity's terms, signify now. One by one, lights appeared on the central display, green indicators showing acceptance. Some came quickly, others after obvious hesitation. In the end, all 12 stood united. "It is decided," announced Drav. "We accept the terms. May history judge us kindly for this choice." As if on cue, the screens around the chamber activated. Admiral Chen appeared, a look of genuine relief on her face. "Your acceptance is acknowledged and appreciated. The transition begins now. Representatives from Earth will arrive within days to begin implementing the new charter. This is not an ending, but a beginning, the dawn of a true galactic community." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in contemplative silence. Outside the chamber windows, something remarkable happened. The massive human dreadnought that had been monitoring Nexus Prime began to transform. Sections of its hull reconfigured, revealing gardens, habitation zones, and what appeared to be open plazas. It wasn't just a warship. It was a city in space, a civilization in its own right. Lights sparkled across its surface, beautiful against the backdrop of stars. A message, not in words, but in the universal language of light and pattern, declaring that humanity had not come merely to protect or to rule, but to share, to bring the lost children of Earth back into communion with a universe filled with wonder. Zolvex stood transfixed by the sight. The legends had been real all along. Humans weren't myths or monsters. They were guardians, watchers in the dark, who had finally decided it was time to step into the light. The awakening of Earth had begun, and with it, the true awakening of the galaxy.